We are now in the home stretch for my preparation for the half marathon in Houston, and I'll be hitting peak mileage weeks just in time for Christmas. So let's pack up the presents and the carbon-plated racers. This is a Runna update at week 10.
Yo, what's going on? Kafuzi coming to you on location from my backyard for the third installment in my training series with Runna, who is the sponsor for this training series. Now, I've been using the app to prepare for the half marathon at Houston, which is definitely different than the Houston half marathon. And right now I'm standing in my backyard without a jacket or even gloves on, which means that it's unseasonably warm here in this part of the country for this part of the year. But I'm going to take that as a lucky sign because it has been peak week and I've had some really tough workouts, and the balmy, unseasonably warm weather has been really good for me to get those tough workouts completed. Let's see how the workouts have been going, starting with week 9.
Mondays and Wednesdays are session days with the way I've set up my Runna plan, and this workout was called Tempo Repeats. Now, I don't know if I can call it a weakness, but a kind of workout that I particularly dislike is long repetitions at around threshold pace. And that's exactly what this was. 2.5 mile reps at 6:35. I was nervous, and my original plan was to try and just hang on to the tail end of the paces, maybe stay within 10 seconds per mile of what I was supposed to do. But I ultimately decided to trust myself and ignore the watch as much as I could. I ran to effort, not the clock, and I was able to come in under the prescribed paces. 6:25 for the first 2.5 mile rep and 6:31 on average for the second one. And that was a big confidence booster because while it was hard, it kind of felt like I had to hold back a bit. It wasn't an all-out effort, which is promising. I was looking forward to a recovery run on Tuesday, but with 9.5 miles on the calendar, it kind of felt like a lot. I decided to take out the Diadora Nucleo 2 for a first run for this one. Diadora told me that this shoe wasn't a stability shoe, which is important to me because I have a hard time running in stability shoes, but this shoe definitely felt a little bit like a recovery shoe for the first several miles. But eventually, both my body and the shoe loosened up a bit, and I was able to enjoy the rest of the balmy weather on this run. Wednesday was another tough session. The workout was called Fast 842, and as the reps got shorter, the paces got faster. The real tough thing about this one, though, was that after 5 800-meter repeats, I had to do 10 400s. Mentally and physically, there was just something about that 10 number that was daunting. I was trying out the Topo Cyclone 3, which is a Pebax midsole shoe that is designed for these exact types of workouts. But I will admit that in my most tired moments, I was really missing the carbon fiber plate that this shoe doesn't have. I fell short on a bunch of these reps, but I definitely got the stimulus intended from this workout. I was exhausted by the end. By Thursday, I was definitely ready for that recovery run, and the Easy 5 on the calendar wasn't exactly easy, but it was nice and relaxed. And on Friday, it was supposed to be a long run day, but it had snowed a few inches overnight. So I switched my Friday long run for the medium run I was supposed to have the next day, and I headed for my local trails in Veterans Acres Park. Ornery Mule Racing, a trail and ultra race company that is also based in Crystal Lake, puts on a couple of events in this very park, and it's also where the local high school hosts its home cross-country races. It's also one of the places in town where I take the kids sledding, so I've spent a lot of time in this park, and it's at its best when it's snowing. While I don't usually have to walk the uphills here, on this snowy day and on my tired legs, I did find myself walking from time to time. But otherwise, the woods were just absolutely gorgeous, and I had a fantastic time running these 11 miles. Saturday was the long run day, though, that I had moved from the day prior, and it was supposed to be 17.5 miles easy. I stopped by the lake to see people ice fishing out there, which is surprising because the lake has been going back and forth between frozen and melted over the temperature swings of the past month. I also noticed some of my footprints, which is always weird for me to see. When I'm walking or running at a very easy pace, my feet always stick out a bit funny, and you can see how my heels drag a bit. This, I presume, is why some shoes have lateral heel bevels. I was enjoying this run, but I did have to cut it a bit short. I felt fine and I had plenty of fluids and nutrition on me. I just ran out of time. It's easy to forget. 17.5 miles easy takes a long while to run. For my Sunday 6, I ran at Bussey Woods, which runs through a town called Elk Grove Village. There are elks at Bussey Woods. They're kept behind a fenced-in area, and presumably they're native to the region. Bussey Woods has a lot of bathrooms, but they pretty much are always locked and closed. There's always a sign saying that they're closed for the season, but these are permanently bolted in to the brick wall, so I'm not really sure which season they're closed and which season they're open, because I don't think I've ever seen them open. The loop here is 7.3 miles, and I only technically needed 6 miles for the day, but I ran the full loop and then some so that I could hit 70 miles for the week.
Now, I'm not the type of runner that's going to get really bothered. If I end a run at like 0.99 miles, I'm not going to run a little bit extra just to tick over to the next full whole mile. But if that happens to me in terms of weekly mileage, like if I'm at like 69.8 miles on the week, I'm definitely going to run a little bit more to get to that next round number. So I ended week 9 with 70.01 miles rather than an otherwise ludicrous 69.8.
Monday was another session day, and this workout was called On-Off Ks. 5 times, 1K at 7:15 per mile and 1K at 6:15 per mile. So this was basically a 10K at what would average pretty close to my 10K PB. This run was not going to be easy. I did bring another shoe to test for this one, the Brooks Hyperion Elite 4 PB, which brings PIBA to their top tier racing shoe. I was glad to have it for this run. The shoe is still a bit firmer than I personally would like, but the proof seems to be in the pudding. I held myself back on most of the reps, but let it rip for the last couple, where I was able to come in at pace, or even a little bit faster. On Tuesday, we were at my in-laws and I had a 9.5-mile easy run. I decided to go on a route that I hadn't run in a while, and I definitely forgot how long that loop was. For some reason, I thought it'd be 9 miles and I'd have to run around a little bit to get to my mileage for the day. But by the 6-mile mark, I still wasn't all that close to home, which made me nervous because I'd only brought one gel and no fluids with me. The loop ended up being 11 miles, so on paper, not all that much longer than I had intended, but it just felt like I ran a lot that day. Plus, my daughter wanted to go for a run, so I accompanied her for an additional very easy 1.5 miles. Wednesday was Christmas morning, and we do most of our family Christmas stuff on Christmas Eve, so I had the morning to squeeze in a workout before the rest of the extended family arrived for more Christmas festivities in the afternoon. Runna, with the holiday spirit, was feeling generous, so assigned me 20 times 400 meter repeats at 5:40 per mile pace. That's a pace somewhere between 5K and mile race pace, so this was a tough one. And whenever I have to do a workout and I'm at my in-laws, I'll most likely do it on this 1-mile loop in Dyersville. It loops around a couple of soccer fields, it's mostly flat, and I don't have to worry about road traffic, which typically has giant trucks hauling things or actual farm equipment. Temps continued to rise on Thursday, and we ended up with some very dense fog. I picked a route I wouldn't have to drive to for my 5-mile easy run. It's a loop I've done so many times I could almost do it with my eyes closed. And with the fog, that's kind of how it felt. I heard a couple of dogs barking. The farm I heard them from is one where I know the 2 dogs have an electric fence. But there was a new 3rd dog. He was not subject to an electric fence, and after a couple of tense first few moments for me, it eventually started running with me. I tried to get it to stay or go home, but those weren't commands it seemed to know. I'm starting to wonder if that's actually a thing that dogs ever know. So the dog ended up running with me for 2 miles until I made it all the way back home. This isn't the first time something like this has happened to me, where a dog runs with me for several miles. And usually, if it does follow me all the way home, I just go inside and let the dog figure it out. The dogs around here all seem to know how to do that. But I didn't get the feeling that this dog was from around here. I suspected it was visiting family, and because it was so foggy, I was worried a car might hit a dog wandering back to where it came from. So I put it in my car and drove it back to the farm. And then when I got back home, my daughter wanted to go for a run too, so I had another 2 miles to run with my daughter. Friday was a big day. The name of the workout was Race Prep. 15.5 miles total with 2 times 3.7 miles at race pace. Runner prescribed 6:40 per mile, and while I feel like I can race half marathons faster than that, I wasn't going to try and be a hero on this day. Remember how I said I hate long, fast reps? Well, this was like the mother of them all. The first one was so hard, the 1-mile loop that I've done so many workouts on never felt so long. After the first rep was over, there was a merciful 2.5 miles worth of easy recovery. I took a couple of gels and then settled in for the next rep. I used my relish mantra that I've been using this entire training block. I tried to zone out. I tried to focus extra hard on my technique. I threw pretty much everything that I had at this last rep. It was tough, physically and mentally, but I was able to come in right at pace, with the first 3.7 mile rep averaging at 6:37 per mile, and the second 3.7 mile rep averaging right at 6:40. For Saturday, we were back home in Crystal Lake. The weather was wonderfully warm, and I initially felt like I should try and run even more because it was so nice. But 6 miles ended up feeling like plenty. I was pretty tired. Sunday was another easy run, but it was a medium long one at 11 miles. The temps were quite mild, but everything was a bit wet. It wasn't exactly raining, but it wasn't not raining either. By mile 8, I was soaked and starting to really want the run to be over. And I probably could have cut the run short with all the extra miles I had run earlier in the week, but I decided I would ride it out for the full 11, and I ended the week at 72.8 miles total.
So with peak week completed, it's time to get to some predictions. Right now, I'm currently feeling pretty healthy. Sometimes at the end of a training block, I can get a little thing with the pads of my feet. That's not happening right now. And other things that can happen to me late into a training block is that my ankles might start to get really stiff. That's another thing that's not happening. So I'm feeling pretty healthy and I'm feeling pretty fit. So what do I think that'll mean? Let's look at a couple of key sessions. One thing that I want to look at is that tempo run from week 9, where I had 2 times 2.5 mile repetitions. That one, I came in at 6:25 and 6:31. 6:31 was my race pace for last year's PR that I had at the half marathon at Houston. So that's a good sign that I'm able to hit that pace for those longer repetitions. And then on week 10, another key session was that long run that had 2 times 3.7 mile repetitions. That came in at 6:37 and 6:40. So those are really good workouts for me. I feel strong and confident about those, but those are slower than my race pace was from last year. So maybe that is not as positive of an indicator. Now, on the other hand, I did have basically what was Yasso 800s about halfway through the training block when I was down in Austin, and I averaged a pace of about 3 minutes for 800-meter repetitions over the 10 reps, which indicates that I'm pretty fit. So that's a positive indicator that leans me towards thinking I might be in PB fitness. But then again, I've also somewhat recently had 2 different 5-mile time trials. One was a turkey trot on a very hilly course, and then the next one was on the second day of a 2-day back-to-back sessions kind of week. And so those times were very good. I'm proud of them, but they weren't exactly PB level fast, which is something that I would kind of expect to see for 5-mile time trials late into a training plan. So there's kind of mixed signals all over the board, but I think there's one more week of intense training before Runna starts to put me into a 2-week taper. And assuming the taper goes well, I think that when my body is able to absorb all this work that I've been doing and build upon all the things that we've put together for this training plan, I'm feeling pretty optimistic. I'm not super optimistic about it, but I think right now the race plan is going to be to line up for 6:30 per mile pace for the half marathon at Houston. If I can hold on to that pace for the entire race, that'll be a little bit of a PB, but I think it could very easily go a minute faster or a minute slower than that. If I fall anywhere within that range, I'll be pretty happy, because that's going to be a very fast time for me, right up there with my fastest half marathon times. So I'm feeling good about where I am so far, but we'll have to see what happens come a race day. In the interim between now and then, there's going to be a few weeks. The content plan is going to be that first I'll put out the Houston race video, which will show kind of like what's happening in the moment, but it won't go over things like how I felt about the kit that I used, fueling, and any other things, thoughts that are going through my head. That all stuff comes in the following video in the race recap, which will be the final installment of this series. And then of course, in the meantime, there will also be regular running shoe review videos. So hit the subscribe button if you're interested in any of that. And if you are interested in trying the Runna app for yourself, use code Kofuzi for 2 free weeks. I get no benefit or penalty whether you use it or not, but it's there if you want it.